Well, that don't look cheap to fix. I can't say I didn't have this coming to me, but after 3 years and 800 hours of use, my 40-inch Kubota tiller has been returned to me pretty hammered. You can see over here, the welds have broken off, and on this side, this like stamped piece of steel is broken off. It's all structural, and it's racked up pretty good. This piece of metal here catches the blades. The model is a B40C. It's made in Italy, and it's been an amazing unit for me. Very reliable. So I'm gonna get this cleaned up and fixed. I'll time lapse the repair so you can see me trying to hammer and bend this heavy steel back together. Not sure how I'm gonna do this yet, but we'll get it done because this guy still has some tilling he has to do. Alright, well, it ain't pretty because I didn't spend much time cleaning any of the rust or anything off, but got it all braced up there, and I know it looks like hammered ass, but what are you gonna do? Anyway, that's done. Load it back on a trailer, and he was nice enough to rent a trailer and bring this thing to me, so even though he broke it, I guess it's not really his fault. These things happen, so let's get loaded up. All right, 2 days later, this guy's done his job and my Kubota is back home with me. But man, did he just hammer this thing up. The good news is my weld job held up, even though it was kind of sloppy and ugly, held up good. The bad news is he said the tiller stopped working, and look at this. When you spin the tines, they just freewheel and the PTO shaft is not spinning. So I either have stripped out gears up here, or I'm guessing the chain broke, which I just popped all these bolts off. I'm gonna take that cover off. But moreover, he got this thing so stuck. Take a look at this picture. And I had to pull this thing out. It was so caked in mud everywhere. I probably spent 2 hours pressure washing this thing. I mean, it was just caked through all the wheels, just terrible. But Alright, got the tiller all ripped apart, and unfortunately this might be the end of its life because the entire rototiller shaft has snapped in half. Now how could this be? The drive shaft has a shear bolt. Why didn't the shear bolt break? Well, I was talking to the guy who was using it. He said he was in some heavy clay soil, had the tiller in the soil, and then tried to start it. And that's a big no-no. That really torques the shaft a lot. You're always supposed to start the implement when it's raised and then lower it. That's part of it. If you look at this brake, it almost looks like there was a slight casting flaw in the center there. But that's a big chunk of metal. I mean, that's like over an inch thick. So anyway, definitely sucks because I just put new tines on here maybe 10 hours ago. And jumping ahead here, I've got everything squared away. Man, did I sound really bummed out in that footage. I went back and looked at the video and I was like, man, sound like I'm complaining a bunch, but you know, things break, so we fix them. It wasn't worth it to fix this because after looking up the shaft on Messiks.com, it was like $600, I think, plus shipping, and it turns out it wasn't available anyway. So I went on Facebook and got to looking. And on the marketplace, I was able to find this 4-foot county line tiller for only $700. These are originally sold by Tractor Supply, I believe. I didn't want a wider unit, but for the price, I really couldn't complain. I will say this thing is considerably heavier, like triple the weight than the other one, and way more beefier, so hopefully it doesn't break my tractor or anything, but I looked it up and apparently it's rated for this. Now it does say here that it's made in the USA. However, if you look at all the fasteners on it and the gearboxes, they say made in China on there, so we'll see if this thing actually holds up or not. Now it is a gear-driven unit instead of the chain drive, so that seems like a pretty good thing. And I've loaned this machine out a few times already with it on there, and it seems to work pretty good. You might see that my tractor is actually in disrepair again. If you look at my previous videos, I was replacing the leaking seals in the front end, which is a really common problem with these. But I'm going to have to do an update video about how I misdiagnosed that, because it turns out there's a tiny little hairline crack that was recessed, hidden above this top seal here, and you had to get down and look. So it turns out the thing started leaking again. At least the other side wasn't leaking again though, but yeah, this left side was leaking like a sieve after I got it back together. So what's the takeaway from this story? If you don't already have one, you better invest in a drive shaft slip clutch like this one here. Don't rely on that shear pin. It's not reliable, as you can see in this video. But in a nutshell here, this end slips onto the rototiller, bolts on, and then your drive shaft slips right on here. You have these springs all the way around so you can adjust the tension, and in the middle of these two plates is a friction disc here, and so if the tiller hangs up on something, this clutch will slip, and if anything, you might burn the clutch out if you don't notice it. But a lot easier to replace this clutch in here than replacing a rototiller shaft. While it was unfortunate that I had just spent like $200 on new tines for that B40C, I ended up selling it on Facebook Marketplace for $350 to a guy who knew a machinist who was apparently going to re-weld the shaft. That was a little bit out of my scope to do though, and I didn't want to get involved with it. Picking up that county line for $700 seemed like the way to go for me. So anyway, if you watched this far, which I don't think you did because this is kind of a boring video, but if you did, give it a thumbs up. Hugely appreciate that kind of thing. Check out the channel if you're new, and leave any comments or thoughts, things I missed or what you would have done differently. I will actually throw in one more thing. I forgot I even did this, but when I got that tiller originally, the B40C, it kept breaking the shear pins on it. It had a 5/16 bolt going through that drive shaft. And now that I'm having a clear memory, I actually did drill that out many years ago and make it a 3/8 bolt. So it turns out this whole thing's actually my fault. And it never really broke any more bolts after putting the 3/8 in there. But I will say that the 5/16 was a joke. Like every time I hit a rock or something, it would snap. And I even tried putting a harder steel bolt in there and a shear pin, and no matter what I did, it just kept breaking. So that's why I drilled it out. But yeah, truth be told, this whole thing's my fault. Get a slip clutch, people. Get a slip clutch. Till next time, KZ Guy 2 here. No nonsense, know how. Chris Brown, whatever you want to call me. I'll see you later.